So we are still on learning goal 2, which is dividing with decimals, only
Yes.
now we're going to put a part 2 because there's still a few more dividing with decimals, quirky things that you need to learn. So the first one is, what if you end up with a remainder? When you have decimals, you don't really have a decimal and a remainder. The remainder is the decimal. So we're going to talk about what you do when you come across that problem. So again, this should be on your note-taking sheet, so make sure that you're jotting it down with us. And this division problem should look really similar because it's got the decimal in the inside of the division. So again, the steps are the same way. Ignore the decimal, solve the problem. And then step 3, I'll talk about it in a second, but if there's a remainder after you finish dividing, so you get down here and it's not 0 anymore, then you'll need to add a few zeros at the end. This sounds really wordy. I'm going to talk more about this when we get to that point so you can see what I'm talking about. Otherwise, it's just going to be blah, 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 blah. Okay, so step 1, ignore the decimal. So how many times does 5 go into 25? My goodness, it's perfect. 5 goes into 25 5 times. And I subtract and have 0. Can I stop?
No.
No. I still have the rest of this. So even though it looks like I have 0, I have the, what is the dead mice smell bad? So I divided, multiplied, subtracted.
We still have to bring down.
I still have to bring down. So now I have 6. So 5 goes into 6 one time. Again, I multiply. 5 times 1 is 5. Subtract. I have 1. Bring down my 9. 5 goes into 19 3 times. Multiply. I get 15. Subtract. I have 4. Okay. Now I'm at the point where I've run out of numbers, but I have a remainder. So since you're 5th graders, you're going to need to go 3 beyond the decimal. So at this point, we have a decimal and 1, which means we need 2 more. So now I'm going to look back at this step 3. Hopefully this will not be quite as confusing. So if there is a remainder after you finish dividing, haha.
There is.
Add a decimal, or, so if there was no decimal here, we would just add one. Or add a few zeros on the end if there's already a decimal. So in this case, we already have a decimal, 0.9. So now we need to add a few zeros. Going 3 digits beyond the decimal is plenty. So we only need 3, so we're going to add 2 zeros just to make it so there's now 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I'm just going to keep dividing. Bring it on down. 5 times what goes into 40? 8. And look at that. I have a remainder of 0. So it turns out I didn't even need this 0 here, so I'm just going to let it hop away. It's going away. Wouldn't that be great if that could actually be on your paper?
Yeah.
So cool. Okay, so I can ignore that part now. Now again, I just go through and solve the next step like it was in the last video where we count the number after the decimal. There's 1, 2 after the decimal, so I need 2 after the decimal in my answer. Boom. So I move it 2 to the left. So that is our example of what to do if you have a remainder. Now you're going to try it. So take a look at this, and I know it doesn't look like there's a decimal there. So if you get to this point and you have a remainder, go ahead and add the decimal and see what you need to do. That will actually give you a more accurate answer rather than just saying remainder of 8 or remainder of 2 or whatever. It gives you a much more accurate answer if you have a decimal. So that is why you would do that. So again, go ahead and pause it and try this. Here are the steps if you need them again. And we will go through it in just a second. Okay, so let's take a look at these one at a time. So 7 goes into 35, 5 times. Perfect again. Unfortunately, I have another number. Gotta bring it down. So 7 goes into 8 once. 7 times 1 is 7. We have 1 left over, and now we're stuck. So we have a remainder. So if we look down, it says add a decimal, add a few zeros. Again, 3 would be plenty. So 1, 2, 3. Now I'm just going to continue solving. So I bring my 0 down. 7 goes into 10 once. 7 times 1 is 7. Subtract. I have 3. Bring down my 0. You know, when I was a kid, I used to love doing these because it would fill up like my whole paper. I was weird, obviously. But okay, so 7 goes into 30 4 times. 7 times 4 is 28. Subtract. Bring down. 7 goes into 20. How many times? 2. 14.
Wow.
2 times 7 is 14. I know, this is a huge one. I love it. Subtract, you have 6. So I still have a remainder. But you know what? You've gone 3 out now, so your answer should be as good as it needs to be, especially for a 5th grader. That's really good. So we are just going to finish solving by looking at our decimal. So I have 1, 2, 3 after the answer. So I need to move my decimal 1, 2, 3 to the left. Voila. So our answer should be 51 and 142 thousandths. That is a decimal. For some reason it looks all fuzzy, but it's a decimal, not a comma. So now you get to try a couple on your own. So please take a minute to pause this and try these. Remember, go back, look at the steps, whatever you need to do, and then we'll go over them tomorrow.
Yes, one more scenario, and this is, we're just going to quickly talk about what do you do when the decimal is outside the division sign. So you'll notice there's no decimal here, but there is one here. Now, first of all, you just get to ignore it again. So do that, and then just solve the problem. So we're going to show you how to do that. 6 goes into 53. Oh, yeah. And then, sorry, here is the step, but we'll talk about that part in a minute. So first of all, we're just going to think about 6 going into 534. 6 can go into 53 8 times, and 8 times 6 equals 48. Then we're going to subtract, and we should get 5 then if we subtract this correctly. And then we bring down. So now we have 54 as our new number. 6 goes into 54, a nice even 9 times. So 9 times 6 equals 54, and we get 0. But now we want to think about this last step. Count the number of places after the decimal and move the decimal that many places to the right in your answer. So that's the big difference.
Yeah, that's the big difference. Before, when it was underneath, we could move it that many places to the left. It would be great if it would be that simple, but it's not. If it's on the outside, we got to move it to the right.
Yes. So thinking here, we are going to move our decimal one place to the right here. And so we have to do that here as well. So here's our decimal. You'll notice, though, we're going to move it one place over, and we just have the space here. And you just want to add a 0 there as a placeholder. So really, now you have an answer of 890, which is a really big difference than 89. So that little decimal makes a huge difference. So you can't ignore it completely. Step 3, you really have to pay attention and move it to the right this time. So what we are going to do is...
They get to pause and try it.
You're going to pause this one and try it. Think about just that big difference. Ooh.
Oh, no. That's wrong. That does not say
no.
left.
No, it doesn't. It really should be right. So
I'll fix that when I edit it.
So pause, try this, and remember, since it's on the outside, you're going to move it to the right. So here we go. Let's walk through this one. Once again, just ignore it at first. And so you're just going to think about the number 4. And how many times does 4 go into not 3, but 37? And that should be 9 times. 9 times 4 equals 36. And we subtract, and we get 1. Bring down our 2. And so now we're looking at 12. 4 goes into 12 3 times. 3 times 4 equals 12. And then we subtract again, and we get 0. So now we do have to deal with our decimal. And we think about, okay, we have 1, 2 places that we could move it to the right. So our decimal ends up here for right now, but then once again, we have to move it 1, 2 places to the right. So we're going to add our 2 zeros here as placeholders. So instead of just 93, now we have 9,300. Whoops, sorry. Didn't mean to scoot it like that. So anyway, once again, you're going to practice with the decimals outside of the division symbol here. Just remember, outside means to the right. So good luck, and you're going to practice these two. And once again, we'll talk about it tomorrow.
Yep.